Hello, and welcome to part one of how to upgrade the Eachine Reusable 250 to a newer frame and other parts if you want those. So it is possible, and it's definitely more than doable. A lot of the parts on the Eachine are pretty cheap, so it's definitely worth it to upgrade certain parts instead of just replacing them as you break them. The reason you might want to switch to a new frame is because the arms are actually plastic. And, well, here's an arm, and here's another arm. These are the only arms I have left. Because in one crash, I broke two of them. I have replacements, but I figured after the fourth arm break, I need a new frame. So I'm going to be getting a RoboCat frame. Really, there's so many good frames out there. RoboCat isn't even the best one. You just want one that's got, carbon fiber. I had a big discussion about this in the Eachine Racer 250 Facebook group about what might be the best frame. There's a lot. We sort of came to the conclusion that if you have the money, building an immersion RC alien type frame might be the best. But really, there's just a lot of options. So it's definitely worth upgrading the frame. So the thing is, if you're going to be upgrading your frame, why not just, build a new quad? And that's pretty much how it is going to work. Instead of moving an Eachine frame to a new quad, it's sort of like it's closer to building a new quad and then sort of keep carrying some parts over. And so what parts can you carry over? Well, you can definitely carry the receiver over, especially if you get the ready to fly version. You can actually carry the receiver over and it will already have been bound to your controller, so you don't have to worry about that. And the SkyMax, FlyMax, i6, whatever receiver isn't terrible. So that could be worth it. And this receiver isn't even that bad. It's a little cheap, but it's small form factor and it gets the job done. And it has actually pretty good range. I think it has something supposedly has a kilometer range in an open area, but with trees, that's going to be a lot less. I know I've flown it at least 500 meters without problem through trees, so that's fine. The other thing you can carry over is this video transmitter and the camera. The camera's a 1000 TVL, so you're going to get a meh latency, but that's really not too much of a deal. The motors, they're 2204s. They're pretty cheap 2204 motors, but they're fairly nice. If you put the 4S on them with the bullnose propellers like I have here, they really go fast. And that's the thing. These ESCs too are 20 amp ESCs, and they can handle 4S. So you might as well. Replacing the motors is 40, and replacing the ESCs is another 40. So you can either spend the $80 and do a full replacement, or you cannot. That's really if you want to be a pro professional racer to get money, you can get your full Cobra motors and full high-end 20 amp ESCs with the built-in Becks and whatever. So that's pretty much everything you'll need to know about converting it over, at least in terms of what parts you can bring. The parts I would not recommend bringing are the flight controller. This is a CC3D board, runs OpenFlight by default. Probably you want to upgrade to LibrePilot because OpenPilot's no longer being developed. The thing about this is it comes with this cable here. This cable plugs directly into the PCB, and I'll get into that more in a second, but the PCB basically routes all the power. So this is the output to the ESCs right here, and this cable just outputs the motor through the PCB and then into the ESCs. And the problem with that is, if you upgrade your ESCs, you need a cable that converts this to these. And the nifty thing is, I bought a CC3D that kills 3 birds with one stone. One, it's a way better flight control board. I didn't mean to say CC3D. I meant to say flight control board. It's a way better flight control board because look at all these ports. It's got like gimbal ports. It's got like LED ports. It's got everything. Um, and it runs. It's a Naze basically. It's a Naze with CC3D flexi ports. So it runs clean flight, and it's very nice according to people. I haven't actually tried it yet. See, Skyline 32. It's an Emax flight control board. Pretty cheap. And the reason you want to get this is because it comes with these cables that convert that to your ESCs, whereas instead of this stupid like this is not going to let you get new ESCs. It's only going to work with this power delivery board, and you can get just this cable to work with the normal CC3D. That costs $10 plus shipping from anywhere I could find. So you could either get a $20 Prime Amazon shipment with this that includes all these and is a better flight control board, or you could spend $15 just to upgrade your existing one to work. And I figured that is a much better value to get the $25 Amazon one. So what this does is it has the receiver here. If I need to do anything, I'm recording with a handheld camera right now, so I can't really do anything. This receiver here, let's try this one-handed, has a flexi port, and this flexi port will simply just plug right in to this new flight control board, and this receiver is already bound to the controller, so you can just boom, swap that in, and then you have these cables here that you can then plug into the other port to output to your ESCs. And let's say you want to get a new receiver. Well, it also comes with a new cable, so you can get a new receiver instead of the straight up flexi port to flexi port receiver type thing that this has. Like so. And this receiver also has, this is a PCB board that converts the pins into a flexi port. So you can just unplug this flexi port here, and you can use this with any flight control board. So that's everything in terms of the flight control board and receiver, and it should be fine to work. The built-in camera and VTX, this is a pretty good VTX. I'm no pro at quadcopters, but I say this is a great VTX. I got a new antenna. It's an ambi antenna. It's amazing. It was like $10 for two, and it has really good reception. This is a 600 milliwatt video transmitter with a signal change, and it powers this 1000 TVL camera, which isn't the best, but it's really good. And then this is just a 5 volt. I suspect 5 volt. It could be 12 volt, but it's probably 5 volt. And this plugs into the power delivery board to get the 5 volt power. I'm just going to cut off that and strip the wires and hook that into the new 5 volt on the new power delivery board on your new frame, and that will, work as a camera. And the last problem is going to be, if you notice these ESCs only have one signal wire that goes into here. So normal ESCs, they have a signal, power, and ground. I have normal ESCs. I bought actually some really cheap ESCs that I'm going to return because somebody on the Eachine Racer 250 group, I'll put that in the description. I will put in the person's name for credit. They suggested that you can actually use these ESCs even though they only have one signal line. Normal ESCs have a power, ground, and signal line as the middle, and then they have another power and another ground for the power. That way the flight controller can get power too. So what it does is it has the signal line hooked into the flight controller. The signal line also carries power to power the flight controller, and it has the red and black to power the ESCs. But these only have one signal, so you won't be able to power the flight controller. Well, turns out that you can just use the built-in ESC output here, like this. There's one that has all three. This one here. This has the three, the signal, the power, and the ground. This one, you can just hook into the power delivery board for the red and white, or the red and black, and hook in the signal. The other ones only have one signal wire, and that's perfectly normal because the ESCs only have one signal wire, so these signal wires should hook in perfectly. So what I'm going to be doing is cutting off these connectors and just soldering them directly to the ESCs, and that should do the trick. So everything should be able to carry over if you want. And so that's what I did. I got a RoboCat and I got the power delivery board for the RoboCat. The last thing is these capacitors here. As you can see, both of mine on the back broke out. That's fairly common on the Eachine Racer 250. The battery in a crash will just like, whoop, capacitor's gone. Whoop, capacitor's gone. There's not really anything you can do about it except hot glue them in beforehand, which, helps. But they're not necessary. I've been flying this for maybe 2 months without any rear capacitors, and I have noticed no difference. All it does is reduce the noise in the ESCs from the motors, and it acts as sort of like a buffer to give it cleaner power. And what that basically does in terms of performance is that if you put in full throttle on really twitchy movements, it might not be as locked in without the capacitors. The capacitors just help with those twitchy movements where you're putting maximum current out through here. But really, that's not that only happens in some situations when you're flying acro. It's really not a big deal. And worst case scenario, you want to put these in anyways. You just buy these you can buy a 50 pack of these capacitors for $5, and you just solder them directly to the ESCs, and then you're good. Or just get new ESCs that have built-in capacitors. It's really not a problem. So that's not an issue. So I'm going to get to work on soldering everything together today. This has been part one, the planning and overview. I've just sort of been freeform talking. Leave a comment and I will definitely respond because I'm a tiny channel with nobody commenting. And it should be fine. For this project, you're going to need some tools. Good old Gene Givens in the Eachine Racer 250 group posted a really great informative post about what kind of tools you're going to need for building a multi-rotor. So shout out to Gene Givens. I'll link his channel in the description. It's very helpful. So this is part one. I'm going to work on soldering it. I'll make a part two. I don't have the power delivery board or the frame. That should be getting here later this week. So if you're watching this, you can factor in when later this week is going to be. And then hopefully I'll be able to get a quad working. That would be really great if I could convert an Eachine. As far as I know, it's the first that's been done. I'll be able to convert an entire Eachine Racer into a RoboCat frame, which would be pretty cool because that would open the door for any upgrades people want to do to anything. I don't know if you guys are like me, but I really like to I like to buy the cheapest thing there is out there to learn it, and then over time upgrade it instead of just buy a cheap thing, learn it, buy a medium thing, learn it, and then buy an expensive thing to master it. Because that just you're buying three things at once instead of over time, putting your heart and soul into something. So, all right, that has been this video. Have a great day, everybody.